I'm Erin Calfee, and I'm from Davis, California. And my primary sports, probably in order of expertise, are downhill skiing, kayaking, rafting. So many of my role models were not female. I should start with that. And I think that's okay. I got into kayaking because of my dad. My first camping experiences were because of dads who worked for the Girl Scouts or other people's dads who took us camping. My mom took me backpacking once when I was really little. And I guess for me, the most important thing was maybe more that other girls my age were invited, so that there was this community building that got me really interested. But as far as female role models, I'll return to your question. I think just having if I think back, I had one ski coach, Janet, and she was just a badass, and she had this really positive attitude, and she didn't make any big deal about being a female ski coach, but as an 8-year-old learning how to ski faster, it was just really inspiring to have someone coach me who was so cool. So it really varied for me by sport. I would say my skiing experience was probably the best for sort of female role models, having several ski coaches who were super accomplished in those roles. And then for kayaking was probably the worst. I was the only 14-year-old girl, or 14-year-old for that matter, in Gold Country Paddlers Club. So I was sort of the token kid. And I think it helped me that even if I didn't have any direct role models, the people sort of instructing me or who were really instrumental in getting me into kayaking tended to be older men, in part because I started kayaking with my dad, so it would be his peers. It helped that whenever I met other women who were kayaking, that they would make a point of saying hi and being excited about me kayaking. So I took an intro to kayaking course with Current Adventures on the South Fork, and it was 5 days long, and most of the time we had a really amazing male instructor, but on the last day we had a secondary instructor, and I remember distinctly that she was so cool. She had just done Cherry Creek for the first time, and she was telling us how important a bow rescue was because she had gotten bow rescued in Lewis's Leap. And I was 14 when I took this course, and I can still remember this conversation. So I guess I feel those kind of small interactions, I took note that there were other women doing these sports at really high levels, even if those weren't the women who were teaching me, how to roll or how to kayak class 2-3 at the time. I think what was missing, I see there's a few groups of teenage girls who I've encountered on the river now, and I'm so jealous because when I started, it really was I was the only kid, or maybe my cousin Ethan would come, but there were no other girls I knew who were interested in kayaking until I got into my late teens, 20s. I didn't really have a lot of peers who were female that I kayaked with until I was almost 30. And it was actually on this river, the Pitt River, where I noticed there was a big difference for me, and I'm not sure I was a young lady at that point anymore, but it was Annette LaForge and I were doing this river, and both of us were intimidated to do the waterfall slide. And she was just I'm gonna do it. This is it. And she had nearly scraped off her entire face the day before going down. It was kind of miraculous that she was energized to do the river at all the next day. And we get to the waterfall, and she was I'm doing it. Do you want to do it with me? And I feel really brave when I'm around other women in my my peer group. So we were the waterfall sisterhood. We both did it so successfully. We were so psyched. We did it again. Yeah, that's one of my favorite memories. So I guess one thing to say is that I think I've been fortunate to, in some sports, roll with a lot of ladies. So that has been one of my big joys, is being able to be skilled enough at kayaking, skilled enough at backpacking, skilled enough at skiing to lead other women towards that path if they want to take it. And that's pretty rare, and I also think that changes the dynamic of learning. It was really, really fun this past summer to do a rowing clinic with a bunch of women and show them how to row a big-ass raft down a big-ass river, or at least a Class 3 river. And that, there's small things and big things that would have been different if that were a mixed group, or if I didn't have the skills to lead us. I think there are sometimes I'm able to give kind of unique advice about how to do things in a way that's less body intense. People say that I ski very delicately, very elegantly. I don't really know what that means. I do know that I, ski stuff really hard, but I would say I ski lightly for someone my size, and there's a lot, I've spent a lot of time skiing. There's a lot of technique that goes into that, and you can get away with skiing or rowing or kayaking using a lot of muscle. I think that sets people up for injury, whether they're male or female. But a lot of times, other women that I've taught sports have been very interested in learning other techniques that lets you accomplish the same things, with less grr and muscle tears, perhaps. Which has been a real joy to share. That said, a lot of my ski instructors were male, and most of them, even though that was a less maybe gender skewed sport than others I participated in. And so a lot of these techniques I've collected from different instructors. I think that I have sort of a biased tendency to pass on certain techniques that I really like, and those, I'm not super buff. I do a lot of sports, and one disadvantage of doing many sports is that your body isn't perfectly tuned to any of them. Because you're not spending 100% of your time paddling. I have really strong legs from skiing, which don't help me a lot when I get back in the rivers. And to prevent injury and just be able to do sports at a high skill, I think I particularly pay attention to some of the more subtle techniques. And that has really helped me out, and I think that's something that I like to pass on to other people. I think cultural change is slow, and 5 years is a really short time frame. That said, I would love to see more women who are paid to be outdoors and have opportunities to push themselves to the maximum because they can actually live off of that and have sponsorships and could travel the world doing kayaking and be supported in that lifestyle at the very top. That would be amazing to me. I think I and other people are hungry for that kind of content, and there are ways to make it happen in 5 years, to sort of explode that sphere. I also, at a very different level, want to see more and more young female athletes out on the water. Kayaking and rafting have been pushed younger and younger, and I think it's totally feasible for kids to go out and have a great time and do it safely. And maybe not every river, right, if you're 8 years old, but there's certainly ways that we could be introducing more female athletes to the sport in really inclusive environments than we are doing today. And that would just bring me so much joy. Yeah, and I really think there are a bunch of women who are pushing the sport, but I don't even necessarily know who they are because they get less attention than they deserve. And I think I would really love for that to shift. I'm interested in their stories, I am interested in their successes, and I want to see them on film. And kayaking has like the Olympics, but it also has a very different sort of extreme sport aspect to it, which is not often captured it's captured in some competitions, but a lot of it is outside of competitions, and a lot of the things that draw me into kayaking and watching kayaking content are not within, these extreme races. Are like people's personal experiences, like out on rivers, making tough decisions, doing really incredible athletic feats. I guess one trait that's really helped me is being kind and friendly to other people. I mean, my success in having fun in the outdoors, but also doing well, has depended on lots of people like generously donating their time to teach me things. Or to just go out with me. And I view my outdoor achievements as being like firmly knitted in this like social net of wonderful people. And yeah, I love participating in that. And I think that also is sort of at the core of my emotional drive to spend a lot of time outdoors. I love being outdoors. I love being outdoors with people more than I love just being outdoors. And I love accomplishing with people. I love accomplishing things probably best with like other ladies. I'm so into it. And I think another thing is just like, I try again. Like, I am not naturally sports talented. Like, I run awkwardly. I grew a lot. I'm 6 feet tall. I grew a lot as a teenager. And I played many sports that I was really bad at. I think I wasn't even like the best ski racer. I was good. Like, if you compare me to non-ski racers. But like, as far as actually doing the racing, it turns out I was pretty bad. And I would always be skiing in like the ruts. And just like going out there again and again and again. Until I found sort of like ways to be successful, but also like continuing to challenge myself. I think as someone who's a very accomplished skier, that can sometimes be challenging. There are resorts where I can literally ski everything, without thinking too hard about it. And I think it's been nice to be a multi-sport athlete, to always be able to remember what it's like to be a beginner, because sometimes we have to be bravest when we're starting something new. Like, I have real threats of going over the handlebars at any moment on a mountain bike. And like, that's a good reality check for me of like, maybe I should be pushing myself more when I ski. Like, how many times am I really at threat of falling? I could probably ski a whole season and not fall if I don't push myself. So I think kind of keeping that drive to do something at my limits kind of alive is really important to me. So I think some of my core values are inclusivity and having fun. And inclusivity, like, can be interpreted many ways. But one way that I like to be inclusive is by taking people in the outdoors who maybe have fewer skills or fewer opportunities earlier to be skilled, and just taking people all the time in inflatable kayaks down the gorge or taking people rafting. I love working as a raft guide for this reason. You would get people who had never been rafting out there. I also used to volunteer for this group on Cache Creek, where they would take kids from inner city schools who wouldn't normally interact with the sort of Cache Creek environment. And I was their safety kayaker, and they would be in these boats that they were mostly managing by themselves, which was pretty incredible. And just super fun. So I was just there to like pick up if people fell out. But it was really nice to be a part of that, and just like a part of so many people like seeing the whitewater for the first time. And it was really cool they could guide their own crafts, because they got the experience of like, making their own decisions out there, for better or for worse. Yeah, and then, having fun, like, it's hard not to have fun if you're on the water, whether you're rafting, kayaking, inflatable kayak. I'm not really, like, that biased by watercraft. I love them all. And skiing, like, it's just so fun. So, yeah, I guess maybe in my trajectory, I've gone more a route for, I consider myself kind of a casual sportswoman. I don't think that I'm like pushing the limits of any of the sports. But I have goals, like one of my goals backcountry skiing was just to like a wide open, beautiful field of powder and have a group of friends ski it together. These are goals, totally accomplish that. These are great goals. I want to ski Mount Basin. I can do that. I don't have to be the best skier in the world. But I can hike my butt up to the top of a huge peak in the Eastern Sierras and ski down. And yeah, just making, kind of accomplishing some of those goals and helping other people accomplish theirs. I'm not sure I'm finding myself out doing adventure sports. I feel like I'm one of my best selves when I'm outdoors doing sports that I love. And I feel like I get a lot of personal growth out of that. But for me, I find that like integrates like positively back to who I am when I'm not doing those sports, or when I'm not outside. Yeah, I tend to be like very lighthearted when I'm out on the water or out skiing. I tend to be very adventurous. Sometimes in my day-to-day life, I'm super academic and I'm very focused. I'm a PhD scientist. Like, I have this other side of me that requires a lot of like sit down time and drive. And I love the lighthearted me, and I would never give that up. I have two accomplishments I'm very proud of in different ways. One of them is backpacking the John Muir Trail. I never backpacked more than like 5 days. I planned it with a friend. There was a couple going with us, and then I invited my friend Debbie, and we were a duo. And I'm proud not only because we made it, which is very feasible for the average human to do, but I'm proud of like how we did it. You're out there for 21 days. Things are stressful sometimes. We had a rainstorm, you get tired, your feet hurt, blah, blah, blah. And there was no moment where either of us ever considered like leaving or that it was too hard. I just like gold stars shining attitudes, being kind to each other the whole time, having an amazing time. We invented an entire album of songs to sing about the John Muir Trail, like out in the woods. And I think there are a few times in my life when I've really been so like emotionally strong for so long. Like you hike a long time every day. I'm not a very fast hiker. And you go over so many peaks, and it's so satisfying to be like, we're gonna be there in like 3 days. And in some places in the Sierras, you can really see a distance. And by the end of the trip, we were doing, up to like a 20-mile day. And yeah, I feel like we accomplished that with like grace and with humor and really strong friendship, and I am so proud of that. My other accomplishment is very different. I am super proud of getting into backcountry skiing. Wearing crampons, I am not like, I do not feel like Spider-Man on crampons. I feel like I am like wearing these tiny toes, which like should grip, but you don't trust them all the time. At least I don't. And we were trying to do some Eastern Sierra ascents, and it's springtime and it's very icy, and so we're using crampons, or we're on skins, and it's like a delicate walk on the skins to like not fall down the mountain. And I have fallen partway down the mountain and used an ice axe. Oh man. Used an ice axe to self-arrest, and it is scary. And so I'm just super proud of myself for getting up super early, like, pre-sunrise spring ascent, and I didn't even make it to the very top, and I am so thrilled that I made it up there. We skied like 5,000 feet of corn snow all the way down. It's just incredible. And you look down and you're like, I hiked this morning, and now I'm just gonna rip it. For me, the most effective strategy to build my confidence was having opportunities with usually other female peers of my kind of similar skill set, and roughly similar age would be more helpful. As I've gotten older, that's less important to me, but certainly as like a young teen, that was important to me. To just like have opportunities with that kind of peer group to push your limits, and try new things. Yeah, like I said, I'm way braver when I'm around a group of ladies like trying to do something new and exciting. I'm way more likely to like take a bigger ski jump. I am way more likely to try a more challenging line in my kayak, or even just to do like a bigger rapid in my raft if other people that I strongly identify with are there kind of cheering me on or like pushing themselves in the same way. And so, yeah, I think what I wish I'd had more of, particularly in kayaking, is like more young women learning with me. Sometimes like multi-sport analogies are very useful in a very direct way. Like if somebody knows how to ski, telling them about navigating down a river run is in some ways easier because they understand sort of like carving out turns and like how to get around obstacles, and like using those sort of cross-sport analogies of like staying forward, like maybe doesn't make sense to someone who does neither of those sports, but is relevant to both. Of course, you accomplish them in different ways, but it can be helpful. It's also a way to like bring people into new sports. I think one thing is that I've just spent a lot of days in the outdoors and a lot of days camping, and I've seen all kinds of crazy things with weather, and with accidents that happen. And I think that multi-sport aspect makes me more aware. If I'm doing a stream crossing, backpacking, like I have way more water safety knowledge than perhaps the people I'm doing the stream crossing with. And a lot of backpackers get in real trouble crossing streams. And I think one of the reasons is that they underestimate or don't know which places are safe and which places are not safe to cross a stream. And that's like a very basic level. But I think that helps me also, when I'm backcountry skiing, like I remember like, okay, like it's getting dark. We need to take this very seriously. Like getting dark in the winter is a serious concern. I don't backcountry ski without a headlamp and enough layers to survive a night or part of a night, maybe not a full night. It depends where we're going. I think I'm a little bit more cautious because of that like multi-sport aspect. Maybe cautious isn't the right term. I think I'm able to see some hazards from a broader perspective that maybe if I were in one sport, I wouldn't have. When I started class 4, I was doing everything in play boats, because those were the boats that fit me. And it was this sort of funny dynamic because I would show up to a river with my cousin and we'd both be in playboats and we're like 15 and everyone's like, oh, those like kids don't need a date. Look at those kids and they're like crazy 88s. Like they're fine. We're like, we have no idea what we're doing. It's like, these are just the boats we can carry and like aren't humongous.
So we mentioned it before, but how did you come to the outdoors?
Yeah, I would say I came mostly like through kind of family. So my mom used to be a backcountry ranger. She was a ski patroller for a long time. And she kind of got my dad more seriously into skiing. So I was like on skis at like 1.5. I insisted that since my older sister was able to go up the chairlift, like I should be able to. So I guess I could say I had like a natural peer in skiing because my sister did it. And so we, did ski school together and did ski racing together. And, like from a young age, there were other little girls skiing, so it was her. Yeah, and for kayaking, it was like really my dad he kayaked in the 70s and he got re-excited about it in elementary school when I was in elementary school, and then when I was around like 12, 13, we went down Cache Creek, which still has a soft spot in my heart. It was a great like class 2 river. I've swum so many parts of Cache Creek. Yeah, and we would do inner tubing a lot, which was a great way to like get used to whitewater. Lots of swimming, lots of falling out of inner tubes, but like inner tubing class 2 is pretty wild. As a small kid, it's pretty fun. Yeah. Yeah, and I think other sports I've gotten into as like an adult. So I've transitioned from like more downhill skiing to doing a lot of backcountry skiing, and I started doing some mountain biking, just kind of like skiing on dirt or kayaking on dirt. You'll notice a trend of gravity-assisted sports. And for those, yeah, it's been through like friends, sometimes partners. You can take any whitewater safety class, you can take an avalanche class and taking these things, and you get these skills to do safety. But ultimately, the most unsafe decisions are happening not after the avalanche occurred or after someone gets trapped underwater, right? The safety decisions are being made like on the beach. The river beach, or like as you're headed out and you're choosing your destination for the day. And I think like I've grown in confidence when I feel uneasy about something, and sometimes I'm wrong, right? There's no reason to feel uneasy, but it's still better to say like, hey, given the crew we have, like, do we still feel good about doing this river? It's higher than we thought it would be. Or someone got injured and dropped out of the trip, like, do we need to reassess what our group's doing or, where we're going? Like, the conditions changed in avalanche. Maybe there's something we're uncertain about in terms of conditions. Like, do we still want to do the peak that we really want to do 2 days ago? Or do we want to do something else entirely? And I think I've gotten more confident and better about just addressing that kind of casually up front and being okay with having a discussion and deciding, no, it's still okay to do this river at this flow with the group we have, or it's not. Like, it could go either way. Or, there's a way to do the peak that we want to do, but maybe avoid east-facing slope that would be more hazardous on a particular day. One thing that I found really helpful is having a lot of outdoor time just with other women. And for me, this was mostly backpacking. Because, like, I had done a tiny bit of backpacking, and my best friend as a kid, her dad took her backpacking all the time. So at age 16, she was like, this is it. Like, I get to lead my own girls' backpacking trip. And it was wonderful. I think there were 5 of us. We nearly got hypothermia because we decided to swim across Aloha Lake and climb the peak on the other side, like wearing flip-flops on our hands because we were 16. Like, who could blame us? It was a glorious day. No one actually got injured other than a twisted ankle, but we made it out. And Like, I think it's important to have opportunities to explore your limits and to make bad decisions. Hopefully you don't die while making those bad decisions. I certainly learned that I should look at a map and probably not swim across a lake, even if it looks like it has lots of islands. Yeah, I've always been teased in my family for like not knowing how to get places and being very directionally confused. I have literally walked into the same building twice from different doors and thought that I was in the wrong place because the the room was laid out very differently. And I was like, it must be a different campus building. Like, I'm not in the right spot. So you could say that I've historically been directionally challenged. But I have tried really hard to orient myself using maps when I'm outside, and I'm actually pretty good at it. So I think like that sort of forcing me to be a leader in certain cases and taking other women out or being in sort of peer-to-peer groups from an early age has really like made me step up my game and make sure I understand like how to do these things. And I think that's really improved my confidence for like having a voice at the table. If I feel uncertain about something, if I'm leading a group, certainly I have to voice that concern. And so then when I'm in a group where maybe I'm less experienced, I still feel a little bit more confident like speaking up. Yeah, sometimes I laughed that in PhD school I would get stressed at things, right? I would get stressed that I'm like working on this project and I don't know whether it's going to work out. Like I had this project where I had to go sample honeybees from like across Argentina, and I was just cold emailing scientists in Argentina to make this project happen. And there was a lot of uncertainty there, and I still feel though that like fear is not the right emotion for that scenario, and I think going out on the weekends and having circumstances that maybe truly deserve fear, like going out rock climbing and getting in a tricky situation where I feel afraid, and maybe there's even real reasons to feel afraid, lets me like return back to my PhD lab and be like, you know what, this is hard, but it's not scary. Like, what are the consequences of like not getting to sample honeybees? Like, I'll just do something else. Like, I can still graduate. It's not, I don't know, I feel like it puts some of that in perspective. Having like real physical challenges where there's real physical danger in a lot of gravity assisted sports. Gravity's there to assist you down that path. Has helped me kind of overcome being maybe a little bit less risk averse in my kind of day-to-day life. I think one piece of advice I would give in general, but maybe it is also more specific to female athletes, is like, you are so talented already and you have so much potential that like you don't need to pick a sport or an activity that you are good at. Like, if you want to be the best at blank because you are very excited about that sport or that technique, you will get there. You don't have to have the right body type. You don't have to fit the archetype for like being a big like burly rower to be a really, really good rower. And I think I would like to share that advice because I think it's not obvious when you go into a sport, particularly if a lot of people don't look like you, that if you're just dedicated and put in the time, you can get really, really good at that sport. And I think sometimes the limitations are, it's like mental in the beginning, but then if you don't seek out the resources and go for it, then it becomes physical, right? You don't have the skills to do it.